faster than a speeding bullet,
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
more powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus, resilient, highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Hey guys, Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. Super pumped to have you guys here. Today we have an interview. It's with Craig Ballantyne. He is the author of The Perfect Day Formula, How to Own the Day and Control Your Life. Craig has been a contributor to Men's Health magazine for over 17 years, and he teaches his clients to get more done, yet still get home on time for dinner. And I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with Craig. I think that you guys are going to get a lot out of it because he has gone from personal trainer to really successful personal trainer to successful fitness business / empire to now teaching successful executives and entrepreneurs how to be more successful in their fields. And he's just learned so much along his journey. He went from having extreme stress and anxiety problems back in 2006 to overcoming all that and really putting together a pretty impressive book, this book, The Perfect Day Formula. But what's really cool about it is we dissect a lot of what's inside the book, and you get a lot of the meat out of that from the 5 pillars that he has, the 3 C's. He is a very systematic and methodical person. That's something I can really relate to, being able to take your ideas and put them in some sort of method for other people to understand. I think he's done a phenomenal job. So stick around for this episode if you want to learn how to have the perfect day or what the formula is for that. Without any further ado, here is Craig Ballantyne. All right, Craig, super pumped to have you on the Better Humanology podcast, man. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's get started challenging the listeners, making sure they have a great week. And we're going to start with a fitness challenge. Could you throw one down for our guests or for our listeners today?
Yeah, I want everybody to have a custom one here. And so I did this a couple years ago. I did something what I called a body audit. Now, I'm an old man. I don't know how old you are, Jared, but I'm an old man of 42 years old. And I thought when I hit 40 years old, I want to know where I stand. And so I think, just pick like 5 to 10 of your favorite exercises that you want to be good at when you're 50 and 60 years old, and then throw it down in a logical order, and then, perform at your best, make like a fun Saturday morning out of it. Maybe get a couple of your friends involved and say, okay, we're going to do, decline push-ups with a weight vest. And I just said that because maybe there's some like actually strong people listening to this compared to me. I would just do regular push-ups and then, pull-ups and then, maybe a mile run or maybe a 400 meter or whatever it is that you want to do, and a vertical jump and all of these things. And then you go, now here's where I stand when I'm 40 or 35 or 30 or whatever it is. And, I don't believe that I'm going to this is my pinnacle. I know that I can improve on some of those. And so that's what I want people to do. And it's a lot of fun to look back. It's much like when you do a before and after transformation. And a lot of people don't want to take that photo at the start, but they're really glad that they did when they get to the end and they can say, hey, look, here's where I am now compared to where I was before. And so that's my fitness challenge to everybody.
I think that's awesome, man. I think that's, in all honesty, the first kind of customizable one we've had before. I really like your approach. All right, so let's go to a mental toughness challenge for all the listeners today.
Yeah, this is one I'm really excited to share. And so this is what we do in our business. I do this personally myself, and it's called a digital detox. And I was just ranting and raving about this on another podcast about how the greatest minds of our generation are dedicating their lives to addicting us to our smartphone technologies. They truly are. People in Silicon Valley, where the smartest, most well-paid employees are, that's what they're dedicated to, getting you to, get that dopamine response for every like, love, share, buzz, and bing. And we have to stop that. We have to prevent ourselves from becoming like little rats in a cage that pounded on a bar in order to get cocaine to get that dopamine release. That's what's happening to us. And so I want you to go device free for as little as 3 hours this weekend to as long as 36 hours. Now, this is what I usually do. I usually shut my phone down at about, 5 or 6 o'clock on a Saturday night. And then I don't open my phone again until Monday morning at about 6 in the morning. So I'm going totally device free, no internet, no phone, no television. I just have a landline for emergencies, and I might be around somebody that has a phone in case we need to use it. But that's the challenge. And so I think 36 hours is a lot of hours for somebody to do. But let's start people off here with 3 hours. Just be totally present and focused on their kids or on their boyfriend, girlfriend, or even just, a hike in the woods. Go device free.
I think that's a great challenge. You're so right. Today, it's to be honest, I bet 3 hours would be a stretch for a lot of people to start, but building up to that and getting to that 36-hour point would be a really awesome goal.
Yeah, especially on a weekend, like when it's not a business time, but it's be present time. Just focus on being present. Let's go old school,
I love that. All right, man. Now, last thing for the listeners, how about a book recommendation?
Man, there's so many out there. The one that I am loving today is Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone. And actually, I just he's one of the few guys I follow on social media. I love the way he's doing a lot of things, how he's selling socially, how he is entertaining. He's as good as Bedros Keuilian, who's another guy that you need to have on this show. Bedros Keuilian, he's got a book coming out called Man Up. So those are a couple of books. And then one book that is, I could go on for days and days and days about books. Another book that is really vital to me is The Art of Living by Sharon LaBelle, which is a translation of Epictetus's Stoic philosophy.
Awesome, man. I'm just writing those down. So I've actually read a few of Grant Cardone's books. So what do you think about his approach to just for anyone who may be listening who doesn't know, Grant Cardone, just from having read his books and watched him a little bit, he is getting after it. It seems 24/7. What do you think about his grinding approach to success?
I think that he doesn't grind. I think that he is busy and active all the time, and he is everywhere all the time. But I don't think he's grinding. I think grinding and hustling is good for when you're going from zero to a couple $100,000 in a business. But he is actually very strategic, and I don't think that you would look at him and say, "Man, that guy's grinding himself into the ground." Now, I think you would say that about Gary Vaynerchuk, which is why I don't follow Gary Vaynerchuk online. God bless him. I wish him the best, but I don't get much out of his messages. And I think people misinterpret what he's saying, even though he says, don't, work yourself into the ground. I think people misinterpret Gary Vaynerchuk, whereas I interpret Grant Cardone stuff as be strategic, build an empire, plan and ahead, be very, very focused, live life on your terms and do not settle. And that guy has a very good life. He's overcome a lot of hardships, but he has an amazing family. He's got amazing business. He's got a good life. I think he even takes plenty of time to step back and recharge. And so I wouldn't say that Grant Cardone is grinding.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And to be honest, having looked at a lot of his stuff, he has achieved amazing things. And I think it's very cool that you said you don't really follow Gary Vaynerchuk, because I've looked at a lot of his stuff before. And you being a really successful entrepreneur, I've always felt like Gary's message was more for people who just maybe weren't willing to put in the work and kind of need that push, that daily, hey, go do it, put in the work, grind. But
yeah, the only problem is I think after you've seen one day of Gary's posts,
right,
you've seen the next 3 years of Gary's posts, whereas Cardone has actual practical information in there. Not just about building your own business, but if you're at all interested in real estate, Cardone personally has over $400 million in holdings, according to his book, and he is teaching you how to invest in real estate. So he actually has shows about that, which is practical, hard advice, which you don't see a lot these days in a lot of the motivational speakers. And again, bless Gary Vaynerchuk's heart. He has great advice about buying wine and marketing. But I just don't see it in his social media posts that there's anything that is a meaty piece that I would go back for every day.
That's great, man. I knew Cardone was in the real estate stuff. I need to check out his more practical information. I had a mentor for a long time who kind of got me into holding rental properties and stuff, and that's kind of part of one of my investment strategies. I'm gonna have to check out some of his other stuff as well.
Awesome.
Great, man. Thank you so much for the fitness challenge, mental toughness challenge, and book recommendation. Now, for anyone on the show who might not know who you are, could you give us a quick who you are, what you're doing now, and a little bit of background, a frame of reference for everybody?
Yeah, I will. But just before I do that, Jared, I have to say that was probably the 10 minutes of the best first 10 minutes of a podcast I've ever done. And I've been interviewed over 140 times in the last 12 months. And that first 10 minutes was probably the best first 10 minutes of any show that I've done. So kudos to you on putting that together there. So my name is Craig Ballantyne. As I mentioned, I've been on 140 podcasts promoting my book, The Perfect Day Formula. But before I even got to this perfect day formula thing, I was a fitness expert. So I started my first email newsletter in 1999. I was sending it out by Hotmail. I had no idea what I was doing. But eventually I got lucky and I started writing for Men's Health magazine in 2000, built up my credibility and created something called Turbulence Training, which is kind of like P90X in a way, but same, but different, put it that way. And so I sold that for over a decade. I still sell it today, but that was my emphasis for a decade. And then I bought a business called Early to Rise in 2011, which is my dream business that I had loved for many years. And then I started writing my book, The Perfect Day Formula, which is helping people get more done, make more money, and still get home on time for dinner. And today I do workshops around the world, coaching programs, mentoring on helping people put more structure in their day, more self-discipline in their lives so that they can go out and take practical information from guys like Grant Cardone or your mentor and make more money by making their money work for them. So that's what I'm all about these days.
That's awesome, man. And to be honest, just a little background for the listeners. So I was in Austin, Texas at the Health Entrepreneurs Conference. It was 2 years ago, and you were a speaker there. And I got to hear I believe it was the 5 pillars is what you went over. And to be honest, so much of that resonated with me. Things to like, especially the planning time that you talked about. And I want to talk about that a little bit more, but just so the listeners know, man, like how you've transitioned from, writing, sending out newsletters to, having this kind of empire, helping other people grow their businesses has been super impressive and something that I definitely aspire to. I just want to talk about how has that journey been going from, personal trainer to the level you're at now, helping other people grow their businesses and executives and entrepreneurs achieving the results that they're achieving. How's that transition been for you?
It's been a lot simpler than most people think. I mean, if you can do whatever you want to do. And so, if somebody's listening to this right now and they're a fitness expert and they want to branch out into something else, well, at one point you weren't a fitness expert and you just went and became one. So you can go and become a real estate mogul. You can become an actor. You can become a podcaster. You can become anything you want if you do the work and you get expert advice and you follow these 5 pillars, which we'll talk about in a second. So for me, I always wanted to do more than fitness. In fact, I never really wanted to be just in the fitness space. I mean, I like working out, but I don't love talking about it. I don't like sitting around and talking about training strategies, although I know some people do, and God bless you, go ahead and do that. But that's not what I want to do. I want to talk about building wealth and improving family relationships and, having a life well lived and really having it all. And so I realized that as a young man, and I was searching for that in my mentors, and I was searching for that in opportunities. And as soon as I had an opportunity to do that, I had a mentor named Yannick Silver, and he encouraged me to go out and start a coaching program, showing other people how to make money on the internet with their fitness programs. And I was able to do that. And then he inspired me to become a better speaker and a better writer and a better coach and all of these things. And that allowed me to make that transition. And I think a really, really big part of my transition and anybody's success in any industry is their network, their connections, what they're able to do in terms of building relationships. And, there's a couple of cliches that your net worth is your network is your net worth. And I believe that to an extent, but also, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so you have to be around good people. You always have to be expanding your social circles. And listen, this is not coming from a guy who's a schmoozer. I am a very naturally introverted person. In fact, I was telling somebody yesterday and their jaw dropped when I said this, but I used to go to seminars and ask for a hotel room on low floors so that I wouldn't have to go in elevators with people. That's how introverted I was. So, but at the same time, I was out there, and I mean, this is probably the thing where I was grinding the most in my life, was going to events and, having the courage to go up and talk to strangers. I mean, it just isn't something that comes naturally to me. And so I worked at it, and you can become good at it. It's all formulaic. It's all systematic. It comes down to the 5 pillars. So whatever it is you want to do in life, it comes down to becoming an expert at it, doing the work, getting expert feedback, having a coach, and it's a bonus in there is making sure you have a network that supports you. Really powerful.
That's, I really resonate with the fact that you said you didn't only want to be a fitness coach. And part of the reason this podcast is called Better Humanology is because I knew when I started the podcast, if I called it just the End of 3 Fitness podcast and all we talked about was fitness, I would really get pigeonholed and I wouldn't be able to like really talk about other things and have a diverse guest, on and talk about, business and wealth and becoming better in all aspects and being productive and things like that. But let's go into the.
Hey, can I interrupt you for a second, Jerry?
Yeah.
Okay. So going to this transition stuff, and what you just said was really, really wise. Like when you're starting something out, do think about the long game and think, where do I want to take this so that I don't get, stuck in a corner, painted back into a corner that I'm only this guy or I'm this girl. I only do this thing. So very wise on your part. But again, you can always change. And so here's a really great example. Today, I'm on Brendan Burchard's email list, and today he sends out an email saying, "Oh, I'm changing the name of my podcast from The Charged Life to The Brendan Show because I want to take it on a more personal level." Maybe he's doing it for personal branding, whatever it is. But there's a guy who's at the top of the game pretty much. I'm pretty sure he has like one of the top rated podcasts in the world. And he's changing the name. He's changing the focus. You know why? Because he's in charge. He's the guy who controls the rules. So even if you do feel like you're backing yourself into a corner, you can change at any single time in your life. And you know who's a great example of that, Jared?
Who's that?
Arnold. Look at Arnold, right?
Yeah.
Arnold went from being a guy who snuck out of the military in Austria to win his first bodybuilding show, to becoming the bodybuilder, to becoming, the guy in Pumping Iron who, was smoking the weed after Arnold is numero uno, to becoming a movie star, to becoming, a celebrity in Hollywood on so many levels, to becoming a governor. And now, he's doing whatever, he's an investor. He's doing all these things because you know what? Who is Arnold? Whoever Arnold wants to be. And that's the bottom line here. We're seeing that today with The Rock. Even Donald Trump, he went from being a guy on TV who used to be a guy in real estate to guy in the White House, like it or not. Nobody's stopping you from changing. So you can change any day of your life because you know what? If you're a fitness expert and you're listening to this, what are you telling your clients? Every single day, you can change. So you got to take your own advice.
I love that, man. All right, well, let's dive into the 5 pillars a little bit more. And I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through some examples of each pillar as you go along.
Yeah, so I learned these 5 pillars from my weight loss clients. So this is really fitting for today's show. And what I realized was in these weight loss transformation contests that I was running, and I started running them back in 2007. We've done over 30. I've given way over $150,000 in cash to winners. And I realized the people that stuck with it had 5 things in place that were often missing from the people who would enter and drop out after 2 weeks. And then I realized, you know what? I actually use these 5 pillars to overcome my anxiety attacks. I've seen people use these to find the love of their life, all these things. And so they go like this: better planning and preparation than ever before. It's not just planning, but it's better planning and preparation than ever before. And that is so important. The second one is professional accountability. This is having a coach in your life. Coach is going to give you 2 things that no one else is going to give you: expert advice and accountability. They are not going to let you away with any excuses. So it's really powerful to have that coach. The third thing is positive social support. These are the cheerleaders in your life, the people on the sidelines and in whatever you're doing, whether you're playing a sport or whether you're running a marathon. They're the ones that are just cheering you on, saying you can do it. And if you fall down, they're the ones saying, hey, you can get back up. They're not going to give you expert advice, but you need to have that positive energy in your life. They're going to support you. So if it's like training at a CrossFit or training at a Fit Body Boot Camp. All those people are getting the power of the other people in the class. Even though they're not getting expert advice from those other people, they're getting the energy, and everybody's on that same mission. And so it's so valuable and so important in there. The fourth thing is a meaningful incentive. And I realized that it has to be a meaningful incentive, not just an incentive, because I was giving away a lot of money to these people. I was giving away money for someone to lose weight. Those are like 2 of the most important things in some people's lives. And they would quit after 2 weeks. Why would they quit? Because they didn't have a meaningful incentive. It was only the people that said, I'm doing this for my kids to have or to make sure that I don't die before they graduate college or get married. Those were the people that truly stuck with it, made the change, and won the contest. And then finally, the big deadline. The big deadline spurs you to action in 3 ways, Jared. First of all, it gets you going. It helps you overcome the initial inertia. Because if you wake up on January 1st and say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z this year, well, this year is a long time. There's no urgency to get started on January 1st. But if you wake up and say, I'm going to do X, Y, Z by January 30th before the Super Bowl, well, you know what? You're going to start moving your butt because the deadline is short. Then when you're halfway through on, January 15th, you're like, oh man, I'm getting a little tired of doing this same sort of thing, doing these sales calls or eating this diet or doing these workouts. But you know what? I'm halfway through. I got to keep going here because I put all this time in. And then finally, as you get closer and closer and closer to the deadline, you move faster and faster and faster. Just like if you were in a competition, you dial in that diet tighter than ever. And so that is the power of the deadline. As you get closer, it makes you work harder. So those 5 pillars: better planning and preparation than ever before, professional accountability, positive social support, meaningful incentive, and the big deadline, you're going to knock it out of the park when you have all 5 of those in place. They helped me overcome anxiety because I had better planning for my life. I had professional accountability in my yoga instructors. I had to show up because I paid them in advance and they helped me learn how to breathe properly. And I had positive social support from my friends and family. I had a meaningful incentive, which was overcoming anxiety because it's a horrible thing to go through. And I had a big deadline. I had a big deadline in my business, and I knew it was going to cause me anxiety when I had this product launch in my business. And so I wanted to make sure that I was healthy before the product launches. So that drove me to take action every day. So those 5 things, Jared, they can change somebody's life.
And I think they're incredibly powerful. And when I did hear you speak, and you went over that very first one, better planning and preparation, and one simple thing that you mentioned was just grabbing a sheet of paper in the morning and planning and writing out your ideas and writing out your plan. And the reason I think that's so interesting, and it's something I've actually kind of added to one of my habits is like a planning session quite regularly, is because everyone talks about meditation and all of that stuff, first thing in the morning. And while I won't negate any of the benefits of doing, having some sort of mindfulness practice, I do feel like it can almost be to an extent where something like what you're talking about, having this really effective planning or planning session, is also extremely valuable and something that you need to do in your daily life. And so can you just talk?
Yeah, can I just say a couple things about that?
Yeah.
So a lot of people these days are reading, they're almost getting peer pressured into doing meditation and gratitude journaling and freeform journaling and interpretive dance and all these crazy things before breakfast, right? I have so many clients that say to me, I'm actually really stressed out by 7 a.m. because I have like 9 things I'm supposed to do. And you make a great point. Don't do any of that if your number one priority in life is, you own a gym and the gym is struggling and you have to go and build the gym up. Don't be doing all these other things before you focus on figuring out the solution to the problem. You need to get to work on that number one problem first thing in the morning when your mind is creative. And so that's, I'm in line with what you're saying, and I highly recommend it. Now, I will give you one twist on that. What I think people should do, and I don't think you're talking about a regular to-do list, but you're talking about actual planning and work. But for actually putting together your to-do list, you should do that the night before. You should make sure that when you wake up and you get going in the morning, you know what you're going to do already. You're not doing your to-do list in the morning, but you're talking about higher level planning, which can be done. But again, just make sure that everybody listening, do your to-do list at the end of your workday for tomorrow morning so that you get off to a fast start.
Yeah, I know that when I plan out the night before, the next day is a lot more stress free, and that's something I kind of hound on with my clients and athletes is the morning routine, like you said, has become so popular and people are kind of getting it force fed. And one thing I always say is don't do someone else's morning routine. Like I'm all for you waking up early and doing what you need to do, but if it's Craig's morning routine or Jared's morning routine, don't do it because it's theirs. They do it because it's effective for them. Find out what's effective for you and do that. And
yeah, that's brilliant. That's well said. And there was a couple of really popular articles last year and the year before about the 14 things that successful people do before breakfast. And someone added it up and it's like a 4.5-hour routine. And it's so stupid. It's so stupid because like you said, it's somebody else's routine. And so many of the things were activities that shouldn't be done before breakfast anyways, like checking email. It was so stupid. But people, again, are being force-fed other people's ideas. And so you know what successful people do before breakfast is they do one thing. They do the one most important thing. They focus, whether it's a successful person that needs to lose weight because they're becoming pre-diabetic, they focus on their health. Or if it's someone who needs to become a better salesperson, they focus on sales. It's stuff like that. And you just nailed it.
Awesome, man. Well, let's talk about the book a little bit more because everyone knows on the podcast I'm a big audiobook fan. I got your book on Audible and hammered it out at 2x speed. That's my favorite thing to do. But I want to talk a little bit more about the 3C formula and how it works.
Yeah, so the 3C formula comes from ancient Stoic philosophy and a philosopher named Epictetus. And he wrote in this little book, The Art of Living, which is a translation of his teachings. It's where I got the 3C formula that says, control what you can, cope with what you can't, concentrate on what counts. So simple, but that is the greatest motto for life, I think. Control what you can, cope with what you can't, and concentrate on what counts. It immediately reduces your stress and helps give you a perspective on life that says, you know what, I can't control traffic or the rain or how my boss is today. I can only control my thoughts, words, and deeds. What I do, how I respond, how I act, and what I say. And so when you go about life that way, and you're focused on concentrating on what counts, which is family and your legacy and all those things, you're going to make the right decisions and you're not going to feel bad. So then I applied it, Jared, to the 3 parts of the day because we best control our mornings. We control what time we get up, what we focus on first thing, that planning, all that great stuff. Our first meal, we really have control of that. We have more discipline and willpower in the morning so we can become more effective. Now, I'm not saying you have to get up at 5 a.m. All I need is about 15 extra minutes from you in the morning. So if you're getting up at 6:30 right now, just get up at 6:15 a.m. and spend another extra 15 minutes working on your number one priority, and you'll move ahead because 15 minutes a day, 6 days a week is 72 hours in a year, and that's really powerful. Now, the second C is coping or controlling the chaos that the world is going to bring you as the day goes on, whether it's your kids getting sick at school and you have to go pick them up, or it's an emergency from a coworker or something else. There's always going to be that chaos, but we can plan ahead as much as possible so that we have solutions for all of the chaos we can expect in life. And in that way, you make the day go a little bit smoother. And then we do that controlling and we do that coping so that we can concentrate on what counts at night, which means we can go home and be done with work at the end of the day so we can actually be present and focused with our families, going back to that digital detox I was talking about before.
And I want to, so you're saying you concentrate on what counts, being your family. How do you kind of find out what counts for each person individually? Because I know another book I'm a huge fan of is The One Thing by Gary Keller, and he talks about your one thing, and the only thing he doesn't tell you is how to find your one thing exactly. And similarly, you're talking about what counts. How would you go about someone finding out what counts to them? What should they focus on? And I know that is a huge question to ask, but I'm just wondering if you have any processes that could help people narrow it down for them.
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, it's one of the most common questions I get. I used to speak and people would surround me after and say, but this all sounds good, but I don't know what matters. And at first I was kind of surprised. I was like, how do you not know? And then I realized, we just need to go through a few exercises. So I like to have people tell me what their values are and their most important things are in 4 areas of their life: their family, their health, their wealth, and then, social self or experiences. So imagine, what do you have to accomplish in the next 10 to 20 years in each of those areas for you to be satisfied with your life? Well, you probably want to raise great kids. You probably want to, you'd be pretty darn happy with a net personal income of like $100,000 or $250,000 a year, and just financial freedom and not being in debt. Okay, great. And then you just want to have great health. I always say when I'm asked this question, I say I want to feel like I'm 17 forever, and at 42, I'm still feeling that way. And then experiences, I want to write more books. So now that I know those are my values in life, they will direct me for every decision that I make, when I do quarterly planning, when I do monthly planning, when I do my daily schedule. I am going to design my days and my life so that I'm on the straight line to success towards those values and avoiding all the detours in life. And I like to use this little story as an example. So imagine somebody listening, they're a 30-year-old guy. They just got engaged to, this really great girl. They want to live, on this nice street in their in their town. He knows exactly what house he wants to buy. He's saving up money. He's on the track. They're getting married in a few months or maybe in a year. And then his old college buddies come along and they say, hey, Vegas, bachelor party, you in? And the guy can say, you know what? I'm 30 years old. I've done these things end up, and I've watched The Hangover. So I'm pretty well versed in how this is going to go. And that's a detour in my life. That takes me off the straight line of success. And you know what? Sometimes you go on those things because you know you have the discipline and willpower. But if you are at all concerned about going off on that detour and realizing, hey, I could ruin my entire life in one weekend, you just got to say, no, man, I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry. I love you guys, but I can't do it anymore. I'll see you at the wedding. And you stay on the straight line of success and you reach your dream destination. And so that is the conviction and mindset you must have about your values and your priorities and what matters in your life. And when you do, you will become a very successful person living a virtuous life, and you will be very happy with where you end up.
You know, just a personal story on, putting that into practice. Many years ago, I didn't have these books. I wasn't reading these books. You hadn't published this one yet. And to be honest, I wasn't reading that much back in the day. But when I was in college, I competed to get a scholarship with Air Force ROTC. I got that scholarship, and that was a huge deal for my family because my school was paid for. But then ever since I was granted that scholarship, and then later I got selected to be a pilot, those two things, I wouldn't allow anything that could potentially, screw that up. So like if I had, gone out to the bar that evening and I was thinking about driving home, I'd just ask myself that question, be like, look, dude, you get caught driving home having had two drinks, even if it's only two drinks, like you're screwed. Like your scholarship's gone, you won't be a pilot in the Air Force, all these things. And it made my decision making like super easy. I just wouldn't do anything that would compromise what I was trying to achieve at the time. I kind of stumbled on that process, but it helped me make great decision. I just wanted to share that because I think what you're saying is so powerful and so true for anyone who's trying to achieve anything.
Yeah. And in fact, I have another motto that I live by that I've been saying over and over and over again. And it's so simple. It's almost like following the golden rule. It's almost like the 3C formula that, you can, if you just follow this one rule, you will be very successful in life. And it's make the right decision for your right life right now. That's what you need to do. That's like just take life one day at a time. But if you just think about that, you're going out for dinner. If if your clients, if they were following this, they have to lose 30 pounds to get off their blood pressure medication. And you just say to them, make the right decision for your right life right now. And they go to the buffet and they're like, what's the right decision? Well, that's that giant cake down there. That's not the right decision. This nice piece of lean meat and some vegetables, that's the right decision. Or, financially, should I spend this $500 on a pair of shoes, or should I, spend only $50 on a pair of shoes? I'm trying to get out of debt. What's the right decision? Make the right decision for your right life right now and always. It's that simple. And, that's what you were living by, Jared. And I think it's a wonderful story because so many people do make mistakes, unfortunately, that have consequences that play out for a long, long time.
And what I think is really cool just about your story in general, having read the book and now talking to you during this podcast, is you really, you didn't just write the book. You seem to really embody all of the principles in your book and live by them day to day. And one of the big things I think that you have done is you've created a really big vision for your life. And so I want to know how you've used that to achieve exactly like what you're going for and your goals. How has vision played into that?
Yeah. So I've always loved creating visions. And back in 2006, I hired my first business coach, and his name was Tom Benuto. He was very famous in the fitness world. And the very first question on the very first call Tom asked me was, Craig, what do you want your business to look like in 5 years from now? And back then, I was just a reader of this website, Early to Rise, which helped people build their wealth, health, and relationships in their family. And I was just a fitness expert at the time. I was building up turbulence training. And I said to Tom, I want to have a business like Early to Rise. I want to help people in all these other areas of life. And Tom knew of it. He was a fan of it as well. And he said, Craig, I can help you. So we put together a plan for me to become a better speaker, a better writer, a better everything that I needed to be in order to own this business. Now, it didn't guarantee me the business, but it'll put me on the path to having a business like that. And I joined mastermind groups and I started my own coaching programs and all of these things. And I told a similar story to my friend Matt Smith in 2010. We were in Arizona at the airport, and I said, Matt, I really want to have business like Early to Rise. And a couple months later, he was with the owner of Early to Rise, and the owner of Early to Rise said he was ready to sell the company. So my friend Matt contacted me, and the next thing you know, we were down in Florida negotiating a deal for the business. And it was 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days after I originally answered Tom's question about where I wanted to be in 5 years that I bought the business of my dreams. Not just a business like it, but the exact business. And so, there's a whole bunch of points there that go back to something we were talking about earlier about making transitions in your life. And so I became an expert. I got expert feedback from other people, and I grew my network. And I wasn't afraid to share my big goals and dreams with other positive people. Because if I didn't tell Matt, he wouldn't have known that I wanted that business, and that opportunity would have, went right by me. But I was willing to tell him because I knew he was a good guy who was going to support me. He's my third pillar of positive social support. And it was through all of those systems, like you said, I'm living it. I'm walking the walk. I'm talking the talk of the Perfect Day Formula and all the strategies in it, because I've used these over the years and I've seen them come true for me. And it's not just theory. It is the real deal.
But I know, all of this, having said that, you're really successful now. There's no way that it came easy. So give me one of your biggest challenges or mistakes you've overcome in the last, I don't know, say decade of business entrepreneurship, however you want to take it.
Well, I did have those severe anxiety attacks back in 2006, and they were brought on by not following my motto of making the right decision right now for your right life. I mean, I guess I tell that Vegas story because I kind of lived it. I wasn't engaged, I didn't lost anything, but I got lucky because I was one of the first online entrepreneurs in the fitness industry, and so it was easy money back then because there wasn't a lot of competition. And so I became very successful, and I was able to stop being a personal trainer, and I was able to work on my online business 12 or 14 hours a day, but then also go out and live this amazing life in the big city of Toronto. And it caught up with me. And so I suffered from those severe anxiety attacks, but I used the 5 pillars to overcome those. And then at the same time, probably the biggest mistake I made in my career was I didn't hire a coach soon enough. So it's just like, someone that comes to us to lose weight, they really should have came to us about 30 pounds ago, but for some reason they didn't. And I could have got a coach in 2003. I had enough money to do it, but for some reason I was too cheap, too stubborn, too much of a know-it-all. Blame a bit of my Scottish and German background, and I grew up poor on a farm, so that's my reason for not doing it. But if I would have gotten that coach sooner, Jared, I would have written my book earlier. I would have helped more people earlier. I would have had a greater impact, and maybe I wouldn't have had that anxiety. So it really comes down to getting a mentor as soon as you can. If you do that, you will become more successful in every area of your life, personal and professional.
And what would you tell someone who can't, because I know that say your business, or maybe you want a really high level one-on-one personal trainer, those things can be very expensive. So what would you say to someone who maybe can't quite afford that high level? What would the action steps be for finding a mentor maybe when you can't afford to pay for one?
That's a great question, and it's a really practical question. And so what I did and what I recommend to other people is going the virtual mentor route. And so what that means is when I was a struggling broke personal trainer, I was buying books, or I was even going to the library and taking books out for free. So that's where you start, whether it's with fitness, you go to YouTube. I mean, I have videos on YouTube that have been watched over 1 million times that you can follow along and do. It's free. So you can go there, or, you can go and buy a book, get a book from the library on how Warren Buffett made his money, or how, someone invested in real estate, whatever it is. It's all free. And then you make the money, or you get results from that. And then you jump up to the next level. It's like, okay, it's time to go and hire a trainer. It's time to go to a seminar. And then, especially if it's in the money-making world, you make money from that and you invest in the next level. Okay, now it's time to go and buy their high-end course. Then you make money from that. Okay, now it's time to go to their big seminar. And then you make money from that. Now it's time to join their mastermind group. And that's what I did. That's how I went from level to level to level. I still remember in 2002 or 2003, I bought this manual for $97 on how to do like direct mail and internet marketing. And I bought it for $97 from this guy named Eric Ruth. It wasn't his. He was selling it for a guy named Bob Serling. and I made $4,000 the first time I went through that manual. I read it again. I made another $4,000. I read it again. I made another $4,000. And then I invested in another seminar. Then I got the coaching, and away I went. It was all just step by step by step success. And you can even leapfrog that these days because there's so much stuff out there.
Yeah, it's almost impossible not to find a virtual mentor, right? With how many people are publishing content, and really phenomenal content. You were mentioning Grant Cardone. I haven't even stumbled across some of the resources you're talking about with him, just read some of his books. But even that, buying someone's book is like they put their entire life into it, and it costs you basically nothing, like $10, whatever. It's basically nothing. And you get this wealth of knowledge, and you immediately have a mentor. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always described my book, The Perfect Day Formula, as my life's work in a book. And, you can get on Audible for $5. You can get the ebook for $10, or you can go to freeperfectdaybook.com and get it for free plus shipping and handling, like an actual hard copy sent to your house. So all of the information that you need is at your fingertips today. And so there's just no reason not to have more success in every area of your life.
Bottom line, no excuses, right?
No, that's exactly it, man. As my friend Bedros says, man up, step up and do the work. We got to turn pro here because we really are blessed with amazing opportunities. And it's so important for us to put energy into helping others and lifting them up and being successful, because that way we can really give back.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm going to shift to the quick-fire questions of the show. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, I love this part.
All right, man. What is the hardest workout you've ever done?
I did this workout that I called the Bodyweight 1000 back in the day. So, it was around the time the 300 was popular, and I started selling all, Bodyweight 500, Bodyweight 1000, all these things. And I did a version of this Bodyweight 1000 that I never ended up selling, but it was so hard. It was 1,000 reps of bodyweight exercises, of the hardest ones I could come up with. And it almost gave me an anxiety attack because it was like a couple years after I'd overcome my anxiety, and it almost put me back into anxiety attack mode. I mean, I just did not feel right for like probably 36 hours.
Oh man, that's a brutal one.
Yeah.
All right. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Doing one thing every day that scares you. I've been living by this motto for the last couple months now. For me, it's just going and talking to strangers and doing stuff like that. And it's really stepping outside of your comfort zone. And just that little phrase is another motto to live by, along with the 3 C's and the golden rule and the, make the right decision. So it's do one thing every day that scares you.
That's great. And, yeah, I think I've heard that before. I try to take it on. But I don't do it as often as I should. So that's a good reminder.
I used to think it was stupid. I used to think, one thing every day that scares you, that's just stupid. And then I thought about it in a different way, and now I use it to fuel me.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it like in like a physical sense of like, I don't know, jumping off of your roof or something silly like that, it's like, yeah, but when you're taking it on from like a work standpoint, or even in relationships, like, being really vulnerable with another human being, like you can do a lot of different things that scare you that you don't do on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not putting your hand in a blender. I wouldn't recommend that. But I will tell you this, the very first day that I did it. So do you know who Sean Stevenson is?
I don't.
The 3-foot giant?
No.
Okay, he's in a wheelchair. He's born with this disease where even if he sneezes, he can break a bone. He's broken his bones over 280 times, but he's a motivational speaker. He has videos that have been watched tens of millions of times. So when you see him, you might go, "Oh, that's Sean Stevenson," because he's an amazing speaker too, very smart individual. And so I hired him for a day of coaching because he's a licensed therapist as well. And I needed to overcome some self-limiting beliefs. And so at the end of that, that was kind of like one of the mottos that I took away was, I'm going to go and step outside of my comfort zone. And so the next day I flew from Phoenix, which is where he is, to Toronto, which is where I live. And as I was getting my rental car for the day, I heard the guy behind me say, "You know what? My credit card got stolen and I've got this debit card," and they said it would be fine. And then the lady behind the counter said, "No, we can't rent this car to you with a debit card or any other card. You have to have a credit card." And he's like, "I just got it stolen." And they're like, "Sorry, we can't rent it." He's like, "But I got to go to this place for work." And he said where it was, and it was on my way home. And never in a million years would I have done this, but until that day. But I turned to him and I said, hey, man, hop in the car with me. I'll drive you there and you can figure out all this other stuff later on. I mean, this was a huge leap for me. But, he and I had a good conversation. He lived in the town where I went to college before he moved away. And, he had actually been to my hometown for baseball and all this stuff. And there was no pain into it to me for doing this. It took me out of my way maybe 15 minutes. But in the past, I would have avoided that. It was a difficult, awkward conversation. But, it opens up your opportunities in life when you are willing to step outside of your comfort zone. So that's a real world example of how I'm using that.
I think that's a great example. And something for me to keep in mind. All right, man, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Barbell and bumper plates for deadlifts, straight up.
Great. So is that like your favorite exercise, deadlift?
Yeah, man. I love it.
Awesome. All right, now here's the question of the show. What is the best advice you have for becoming a better human? And this is 100% open-ended.
It is to remember that at the end of your days, at the end of your life, all that's going to matter are people and experiences, not money or stuff. You are only going to remember, the cheap $10 meals you had with the greatest friends. You're only going to remember the time you had, all those your nephews and nieces and your children running around your house, tracking mud through the house, and you're going to remember that, and you're going to say, that was the greatest day of my life. That's all that's going to matter. Now, I don't want you to not be ambitious. I don't want you to not go out and make money, but I want you to remember that at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Dude, you nailed it. That was awesome. I really like that one. All right, man. So I'm sure people want to, be able to check out your work and what you're doing now. So where can they go to either get your book, find out more about you online? Where should they head?
Okay, so grab my book at freeperfectdaybook.com. That's just a shipping and handling offer. Or go to Amazon. It's a little more expensive on Amazon. You can get it there too. You can get the Audible version, which is the cheapest. Then find me at earlytorise.com. That's where I write all my articles. That's where I have my own podcast there as well. And then on social media, my favorite one is instagram.com/real Craig Ballantyne.
Awesome. Well, Craig, thank you so much for being on the Better Humanology podcast. It's been a blast. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you know what? I'll say one thing, Jared. I've literally been on 140 podcasts in the last 13 months, and this has got to be in my top 5 or 10. This is really great one today.
I really appreciate that, man. It means a lot, especially if, coming from someone of your caliber.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, man.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.